We are live. And a very good sunny morning to you, Mr. Haynes.
It is a beautiful, look at it, isn't it glorious?
It's
a little bit chilly.
We're a broken record, yeah. It's a little chilly.
A little chilly.
Hence I've got the tracky top on today.
Yeah, a little chilly in the air. So, yeah. But I had a beautiful morning. Was sitting up with my beloved, and 5 dolphins came swimming past this morning when we were just sitting
A pod?
Just a little pod of dolphins.
Oh,
just
wow.
Always, don't we live in a beautiful place? Dolphins and the ocean, and whales are breaching at the moment. As they head south again. Life is pretty good, mate.
It's not too shabby on the Gold Coast.
It's not too bad.
We're going to keep it and advertise it too much because, I think especially poor Victorians would love to be anywhere but Victoria right now, perhaps. But certainly this is one big option. I've got a relative down there, and we've been trying to sort of get her up here, and she's probably watching this later on.
I think the boats will be in the harbour post-COVID. The Victorians just
there we go.
U-turn, head north.
Yeah, right.
And the Gold Coast real estate will never be the same.
But it might be a smart move actually to sort of go into the. You get into a boat if you're in Victoria. A little harder for the police to come knock on your door there. And some amazing stuff. I saw Thrive 2 on the weekend.
Me too, mate. I watched it on Saturday night. Yeah, I tuned in and I bought it, so I've got it there forever. And just wonderful. What a beautiful vision. And the guy in Zimbabwe. At the end,
taking electricity out of the air. Right? I mean, Tesla only invented it years ago, but we know what happened.
Comes from God, he said.
Comes from God. I don't know, but it works.
Yeah.
They tested it. And like Tesla was working on before JP Morgan pulled the money, I found out why he pulled the money too. I think it said it in the actual documentary that because JP Morgan had huge interests in copper wire.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
And
they thought, well, hang on. If we do this, then I'm going to be cutting off my own.
And how do you charge for free electricity?
Right.
That's the point as well.
Well, maybe it's a service to humanity, but no, you can't make money. You can't bank that. So, just learning about the top families that we have running the whole show.
Yeah.
Was it the Rockefellers? I think he said it's the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Morgans, all connected to Citibank, Chase Bank, or Chase Morgan, right? Yeah. And was it National America or whatever? One of the other global banks.
Yeah, anyway. Just check out the Bilderberg Group, as well.
Right.
And look at,
there was them, and there was
their meeting every year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we got George Soros and the likes of
Right.
So there's a cartel.
Right.
If you're into conspiracy or reality or whatever you want to call it these days, I try not to call it conspiracy because it's actually factual.
What was it? He did. He said, I mean, you got to check fact checkers and fact checkers, but he's gone through and said, look, all the facts here are listed, and as fact checking as much as we can do. But you've got someone in Foster Gamble of Procter and Gamble.
Yeah.
I mean, they're no small fry.
They're not a small fry, are they?
Right? And this one's sort of broken from the pack, I guess, of a very rich family. It was just done so professionally and elegantly. I actually I went backwards and watched Thrive 1 yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? And it was that 2012, 2013 they did that one. And they were predicting all this. And now here we are.
In it.
Right, in it. And a lot of it around bioenergetics and frequency. Nassim was on there as well.
Nassim,
right?
Who's in my book?
Right, it's in your book, right? But the way they structured up this pyramid type structure, we had us down the bottom, right, on the food chain, and then you had the governments, which had the monopoly of force, they called it, and then you had the corporations that owned the governments basically, all the campaign money and everything. And we're talking a lot more around the US, but generally there's a lot of truth around the world, right? Absolutely. In the corporations, and then you had the banks, right, and they were owned by the very few families that I just mentioned. And it's funny how he went through his own experience in this. So
quite incredible. Yeah, what a story. And if we bring that back into the story of CAP and why we started this in the first place, Tommy, to get that soul quality back into business, back into corporate space, and talking today in terms of today's topic to bring us in for Move It Monday, talking about getting that connection with people, getting that lead with people, and then how do we connect in with people as leaders to lead them forward? How do we get people to trust our leadership? How do we get people to connect with us in that space?
Right. Okay.
So I want to ask you to, bring a bit of wisdom if you can today around that space, particularly, bring it back to the physiological, if you like, as well, as much as you can.
Yeah.
But if you want to be a bit more generic around that space, it's okay. But talk about, how do we stand there as leaders and do that initial connection to get that trust happening? Because it's all about trust, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Look, at the end of the day, if you want it to be sustainable, it has to be, and I mean, fear is the number one motivator, but fear is not sustainable. And so I think, the old leadership, and, we're seeing the remnants of it, what's left of it, because it will change, right, in Victoria right now. The old, the government having the monopoly of force, if we're going from the Thrive movie angle here, they do, as long as we continue to allow them to have it.
Yes.
And we're going from the days of forced leadership. I mean, it's draconian. It's very old. Yeah. It's old world, right? From forced leadership to pacing and leading. It's actually the opposite. It's actually leading from behind. And how do you extract the best out of people and and get people to want to be led by you in a natural, sustainable way, not because you've got a gun to their head, so to speak, right? So,
tall task, actually, isn't it, for leaders?
It is.
To change that mindset that may have been there for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 60 years in some cases.
Well, from the beginning of time, really, isn't it? I mean,
suddenly we're saying, Tommy and Adrian are saying, okay, guys, let's make a change, new form of leadership. Yeah, great, Tommy, great, Adrian, but how do we go there?
Right.
That's the question. What resources can you and I help people to support them to get into that new paradigm? To get into that new leadership? Because you and I, to some degree, lead in that space already. I've been leading in 30 years, the same as you have, and trying to bring in that new concept of leadership understanding in a new consciousness. But for many, it's really new.
It is.
It could be new today. For people listening in for the first time. So how do we do it? How do we go ready, steady, go, and you're off? Where's the guide rails?
Where the guardrails on this one. So for those that have been used to just using authority and that centralized control, and it seems that once again with the Thrive movie, they're trying to bring a global control in, whereas the populace are actually more towards the opposite direction of distributed control or self-control, actually, was what the theme was about. Self-responsibility, non-aggression.
Morality was the thing you talked about.
Morality, and this principle of non-aggression. Right? If you have to use aggression, then it ain't going to work, or work for a short amount of time. But people have woken up enough, and they are awakening right now to go, you know what, enough.
And of course, we have seen it in history of Gandhi. Probably one of the greatest, leaders on the planet ever. The following of millions of people. And no force. No force.
It's complete opposite.
Totally the opposite. No conflict.
No.
And trying to bring peace to a nation. And he managed it to some degree. Then politics got involved, and he was thwarted, and then he went into politics of Gandhi. If you haven't checked out Gandhi, go read the latter years of Gandhi's politics of getting caught up in the British colonial system, etc. He was. He nearly got there.
He
so close.
He nearly did. But I think we're at an era now where the whole world is ready for it, let alone, let's say, India.
You better better get the gun on, mate. Start walking.
Get the stick out. Shave the head.
A tiny little fella.
He was, wasn't he?
Yeah, I saw a statue of him in India. I saw a statue of him in India, like a replica size. And a tiny little chaka,
Right.
He's a little fella, but wow, energy, and wisdom and leadership. Leading not from the front.
No.
I mean, he was walking in front. But he actually walked within.
Well, everybody walked behind him.
Yeah, he walked within as well. He was in the mob. He led from within.
Well, you've got to get in there and pull the yoke with everybody else, so to speak, right? And I think that's the way you can also earn trust, respect, getting in there, rolling up your sleeves as well with the team. And they go, what? He's here with us,
Team player.
The first onto the field, no man left behind type of thing, last off the field kind of thing. that builds a connection. So that when you're pacing, and we look at this being the physiological part of the week as well, right? We've started.
Oh, you get the easy part, right?
Oh, I get the easy part. Yeah.
That's your phrase. That's your phrase.
Yeah, right.
Get that one in.
Yeah. Well, you get it on Friday. But you're pacing in with somebody. I guess the word empathy comes in, right? And so, what does that mean? When you're empathizing with somebody, is it what's the other word that's similar? Sympathy.
Yeah, sympathy.
They're different.
They're very different.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Whereas, if we're looking at empathy, you've got to be walking in someone's shoes to be able to empathise with the situation.
To understand the situation.
Right. Rather than, oh, you poor thing, sympathetic. Oh, no. It's getting in there earlier and empathising. And so you've got to understand your people, and so you're not just talking about logic, left brain, and numbers and performance and everything else. You're actually asking them about, okay, well, how's the family, how's things going, and how are you, and that really touches people. I remember some of the best leaders I had would check me first and check in, and or I'd say, oh, so how are things going, and I'd start sprouting off some numbers and this, that, we got this, no, how are you?
How are you? What do you mean?
Right. What do you mean? Right? But it was endearing. Yeah. I thought, mine sort of thinking sort of what does he call it? Tony Robbins calls it a mental interrupt or something. Yeah. It's like, didn't expect that. Caught me off balance. No, thank you. I'm well. So, and how's your mum? Taking an interest in the greater person that's there. Yeah. That sort of starts to get you into that empathy type situation, especially if they've got some challenges going on. Yeah. Then it becomes real empathy. And as I said, what is it like to walk in their shoes? And you start to connect in with people. But when you're pacing in, there's a bit more around that, in that you want to see, no matter whether it's empathy because someone's got a situation, or
excuse me,
or it's all right, stay with us, just pull yourself off the balcony. We've lost David. Or what you're doing is you're tuning into their, and this will resonate with the current times. You're tuning into their frequency, right? And Thrive 2 did a lot of frequency
vibration.
Frequency vibrations, what they had in the scene there, right? So, not everybody will be at your level of thinking, or they're either, I hate using these sorts of words because it sounds a bit judgmental, but maybe they're not up to your level of awareness. Or thinking and so on, and I guess that's why you're in that leadership position. But where are they at? Because they may even use different language than you, right? And so to connect with those people, like spiritualism can scare people.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Right? The ones that are scared will say, "Oh, it's woo-woo" or something like that.
Tommy
or ignorance.
I'd say
one of the two, or both.
If you're new to the scene and you walk into an organic shop, it can be scary.
Right.
Don't know what's on the label, don't know what the food is, what's quinoa,
a bunch of hippies
what's Asia, all those new words.
Yeah.
For the male ego in particular, that's actually quite scary because I want to look like I know everything and I've got everything in control. Suddenly I'm in this shop that's got guavas and fruits and things that maybe I've never even contemplated buying. Yeah. And I've got to go up to the counter, and buy all this stuff, not even aware of it, and I have to ask a question about something. Yeah. That's a challenge to the ego.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just that in itself is a challenge. Let alone, tuning in upstairs to the spirit. I mean, that's a big tall order.
Right. And it is for someone that's new to it. Yeah. And hence, we're going to be having retreats down the track, and it's going to be about getting through that crap.
Living on brainwash and quinoa.
Yeah. Right. If you want to go up to the next gaming level, champ, ego ain't going to take you there. Guaranteed. Right. So, do you have enough courage to take the ego off and be vulnerable? So vulnerability is a lot of what it's about.
That's huge, isn't it?
So relating to people, and someone's sort of, but if someone's talking to me and I'm their leader and they're saying, but I found this, I had this challenge with this and that, and this happened, and I couldn't. Just by sitting there, you start to tune into their frequency or pace in. You're going to be saying something like, "Hey, look, I remember what that was like. I know what it feels like." Because I've been there, but here's what I found. With time, that I did this or this, and I tried this out, and then boom, this happened after a couple of attempts.
Yeah, and the great question for me is if you had a magic wand, what do you think you might do to change the situation?
Right.
And then it brings it back to the person to start thinking for themselves about possibilities.
Right.
And that's that leadership connection with
Right.
it. So we're not sort of saying, well, you have to do A, B, or C to get through your challenge.
Yep.
But let's get you critically thinking on what your soul might be coming for.
Right.
Because the answer might be different for different people.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, the old instruction manual, like IBM used to have all these procedure manuals, right? Just don't think, you know, just do this. Here it is. Stop thinking. Stop using your right brain. Whereas if you ask somebody the question you just said, they then have to go inside their spirit and their soul, and they're going to have the right brain. They're going to get creative.
What do I really want?
What do I really want? And how do I best achieve this? Because not everybody achieves things the same way, right? You've got to, you know, if we get to linking physiology, which is what I'm supposed to be doing here, and let's say pacing and leading, right? Tenuous, but if you had a chat with your body, and you're going to tune into the frequency of your body, today should I be doing that HIIT, right? That high interval training, right? High intensity interval training. No, my body's really not feeling it today. It wouldn't be smart. Or am I going to lift that, 20 kilo kettlebell, and I'm starting kettlebells for the first time, and I'm going to be doing, 100 squats. Tune in, empathize, ask yourself a question. Really, is it smart? So that's a way of sort of pacing in with yourself.
And as a leader, working with people and being aware of everybody in the team, or in the organisation, of where they're at physically, probably emotionally, mentally, spiritually too.
Absolutely.
But if we start with the physical, great observation.
Yep.
Hey, Fred, I just noticed the last few weeks you put on a couple of kilos. I don't know what's going on.
Right.
Great question.
Right.
But you've got to have the courage to ask the question.
Right.
And I think that's the leadership, isn't it?
And look, and they've got to be ready to receive that sort of information from you too. I mean, you can say that if you've already paced in enough times with somebody and you earn enough brownie points of trust. You can probably say, hey, I notice everything okay, you put on a couple of kilos. If you're coming in cold with somebody and you don't have that connection yet, and you haven't paced in ever with them,
so talk about,
and you go, what the dude? Like, we just freaking met, or you've never really cared what's going on.
So let's talk about that pacing for a minute.
Yeah.
Like different levels of pacing, like entry point,
right?
And maybe some understanding from you, Tommy, about how to pace that journey to get that deeper connection with somebody, to get that trust. What would be some of the key things to do to get going on that, to connect with the team?
Sure. So, well, I mean, the same as, the approach I used to use was that, if I was meeting this person for the first time, outside of a work situation, right, how would I approach it? And sometimes you can smart with a bit of the ice-breaking sort of small talk, bit of a giggle on something, find some common ground. We haven't even gone into the work situation yet. Why? Because we're connecting with the person, the individual, not the tool, right? Of and even though as a leader you got a lot of pressure on you, and you're thinking you need to get all these things done, and here's a lever, that's going to come across that way. And I've got to say, sometimes I was like in that left brain zone, and I would kind of make that mistake. And if I hadn't already had brownie points with that person, I'm probably not going to get that much performance out of it. Right? But so you can do that at a certain time. But in the beginning, become their friend, and learn about them. Then you're pacing into them, you're learning about them. You can be in a position to empathize with them. And you start building trust. No one cares how much you know until you know how much you care.
But I suppose that's been challenged in the past, is that because people open up, people expose their Achilles heel,
right?
And then when the time comes, it's used against them.
Right.
So that trust was smashed and smashed and smashed. I've had it. I'm sure the listeners and the watchers have had that at some point in their workspace and personal space. So people are very protective of that wound, because they don't want to open that up again. So there's a fine edge, isn't there?
There is, and some people are just generally like that. It may have been part of their upbringing. They might have had a very, maybe dominant mother and father, or they came up in a rough neighborhood, and maybe epigenetically, a couple of generations back, it may be in there with certain genes that switched on or off that create that sort of distance and disconnect. So that means it's going to be, you're going to have to be more tenacious and creative as a leader. Think, how do I get under that person's skin so they can at least trust me? And it's probably going to take more time and invest. Usually too, something that will help you is if you've got a reputation, and that can be a good or a bad one. Right?
Depends who's saying it.
Depends who's saying it, where it's coming from, who they trust. Do they trust the source? Because you can bet that from a leadership point of view and in corporations, that before you end up in that job, there's probably a damn good chance, unless you're a new employee from way outside, they haven't gone and checked on LinkedIn to check your credentials and who you're connected to, and this person knows them,
a friend of a friend.
And they're phoning a friend of a friend saying, hey, what's this dude like? Is this joining as our leader? Right? Or if it's within the company, you may already have a circle of influence, ripple effect that you've had that they know you.
Particularly in certain industries, because people in the industries tend to know each other and connections.
The higher you get, in responsibility, the more profile you're going to get.
And the smaller that circle gets.
The smaller, exactly, right? So, looking after your reputation from being a sincere and integral, or being with integrity, that is known to be trustworthy, can get you a good leg up to begin with. But some are going to be harder nuts to crack than others, and it's just going to take time to pace in with them. And you're going to have to give. It's the same as social media. It's supposed to be the 1, 2, 3 punch. It's like give value these days, and then you're in a position once you've earned some trust in your character and perhaps in your perceived competency, capability, that someone will go, okay, I'm interested. Let's have a chat about what you've got to offer.
I'm ready for the chat.
Right. So pacing in, and getting there, and then you're in a position to lead. And so that's when you start to step it up, and you've got to take baby steps on that. You want your whole team to be up here, but you don't want to pull the hammy, right, so to speak, on going too hard too early.
And I suppose from that leadership perspective, Tommy, what we're really asking the followers to do is to reach the level that we're playing at as leaders, or beyond. Like you said before, you get these egos that come in the room that feel very vulnerable if they aren't the smartest cat in the house, sort of thing. I had to learn that I didn't have all the answers, and made a point of being the dumb dude in the room. And I'd even have some of my team would heckle me about it, and I'd laugh about it, right, as well. But when you get to a point of being comfortable with knowing what your strengths are and your areas of development, what you don't know. I'm not going to say weaknesses. I think a weakness is just it's not a
negative
weakness.
term.
It's just something
it's not a weakness. It's just, that's not where I'm strongest.
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to study that yet.
Right.
Give me an hour and I'll be up to speed. But I've never actually seen that manual before.
Or it doesn't interest me.
Or it doesn't interest me.
Right.
The pass up through to the keeper.
I mean, I've never been a big one for detail. A lot of people will laugh and say, don't we know it, right? Fine. Guess what? I'm bringing a detailed person into the team who gets off on detail, and they exist. And, I was best suited when I did some analysis, like with my Gallup Strengths, stuff, Gallup Strengths 2.0, which I got certified in. My team, I would assess them all, and you could actually put it up in a matrix where everybody fits in the team. So if we're talking about pacing and leading with people, you could then have at least a psychometric analysis on the way they are predisposed to thinking from a learnt behaviour point of view. Some of that may coincidentally be more sort of somatic or at a more deeper level. That's where their strengths are. But some of those strengths are learnt type of behaviour. And when you start looking at things like going deeper with like epigenetics, where we've got 25,000 genes, and you'll find out as the pacing and that's starting to work. The pacing and leading, where you can find out how of the 25,000 genes we have as a human, just above a worm, right?
There's 3 more than the skunk or something.
Exactly right, isn't it crazy? And that's because there's a lot more DNA with the bugs on us, the biome, which we symbiotically exist with. A lot of people still don't understand or know that. But when you look at epigenetically how someone is predisposed to behave and what their genius is, You're going more to a deeper level. Obviously, it's their genes, it's their DNA, and that's kicking off biochemicals. And so when you're sort of coaching them as well, as you pace in to lead, and you learn these sorts of things about them through Gallup, through psychometric, or going deeper with something like, the epigenetic stuff I'm talking about, you actually start to understand the person, so you can start talking at their frequency and their language, right? When you get a group of these people in a room and you map them all up, and they've done their epigenetic analysis, and I'm not talking DNA stuff, it's actually through measuring people.
You're
right.
6'2", 6'1".
Yeah, that's it. Right. Yeah. Listen to that guy. Right. Yeah, the big heavy guy. Don't muck with him. Right. But through that, we can reverse engineer into the genome, and from that, we can then have a look at epigenetically where they are as a human being. And this is used in workshops. One of these companies that I work with, where organisationally, people start to find out that this person, that person, that person are all different. And so the frequency of discussion they start to work out that makes sense to connect with them. But they also don't get, the judgment goes out the window of saying, oh, that person's they're being an idiot again. No, actually, they're not being an idiot. It's just the way they are predisposed to behave. Idiot's a bit sort of too big a stronger word to use. It's like maybe you're frustrated, you don't understand that person. And so when you understand them, and it's like they've done the assessment, and you can see that they are different to you, but they are fantastic in situations that you are not.
Exactly.
And so we all have our skills. We all have our skills. We're all X-Men. Right? We've all got our superpower that we have. Right? And so then you really start to appreciate when that superpower that can sometimes feel annoying to you. That's just to you. It's not to everybody. Right?
Somebody about what you're talking about. He's a great guy.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Or maybe they caught them in a different situation. Right.
Different topic.
Different frame of reference context. So it's very contextual as well. So then you can pace in with people. You understand them more at a deeper level. And a connection happens, and you feel that connection. Now, some of us maybe can't remember, or maybe have never even known what that feeling is.
Feelings.
Nothing more than feelings, right? It's Morris Albert. And that could be a huge epiphany for someone that perhaps has been the bully leader, right? And they may have survived in that in the past. They're certainly not going to survive it in the future. Those days are gone ski. They're going. It's flipped. And it's flipping at speed right now. You look at the millennials too. Holding on to millennial talent in your teams is hard work. And they've got what would be perceived by the older school a bit of an arrogance about them.
Or maybe clarity.
And expectation.
Arrogance and clarity, I say, is a very fine line. I'm really clear. I think it come across as arrogant. And there's a very fine walk on that tightrope of arrogance and clarity. Very tight.
Right.
And but when one recognises that it's actually clarity, these guys are clear. We know where we're going. We've got the ideas coming through. We've got a vision. We're going there. Bit of arrogance in there, but the clarity is so strong.
Right.
And I love clarity. I'm a clarity seeker. I love clarity. So those guys, I get them.
Right.
Because they're aiming for what they want in life. I think that's a beautiful, passionate thing to have in one's life.
Right. But it's interesting how it can be mistaken though, right?
Because, totally.
There's two different drivers that could look like arrogance. One could be totally honourable, and the other one could be, they are arrogant.
Totally.
Right? Because of where the driver
part of it, I suppose, is part of the communication, isn't it? It's dependent how that's communicated by that person and the person observing.
Right.
What's the connection? What's the between those? Because you might get one person observing as clarity and one as arrogance, and it's the same behaviour.
Right.
So it's about the connection, the communication.
Right.
Right. It's probably about how they paced each other to get to know each other.
Get to know each other, right? And it's funny how some relationships in the beginning, because our brain wants us to survive as a human, right? And it's looking after the rest of the meat suit or the kebab, and so it will be somewhat. You can almost use the word judgmental on seeing people for the first time. It's going in as the reticular activation system is doing a scan, saying frequency check of that person, and this is all frequency by the way, and vibration, just our eyes interpret it as a hologram, but it's called a human that they see and they're connecting in with, and they've got, all of a sudden that person does one or two things. So acting on limited information, identifies something right in the reptilian brain, and goes, oh yeah, that experience with that vibration frequency of a human before.
So that
now you've all of a sudden put that, you've tarred them with the brush.
So we go into two places. We go into sympathy or antipathy.
Right.
In that place we either warm to them, or we're repelled by them.
Right.
Straight in a moment, in a nanosecond.
In the beginning.
In the beginning, yeah.
The judging the book by the cover.
Yeah. Or the feeling.
Right. Or the feeling.
Yeah.
Right.
We feel into it.
Right.
It doesn't feel right. I don't feel his energy. I don't feel her energy.
Right.
Or hey, I love your energy, man.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes you see those ones and they don't turn out to be what you thought they were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So we can have that working both ways. The only way you're going to find out is over time.
Yeah.
And you're watching, of course, a lot of non-verbal cues on how they behave in situations, so you can continually collecting this information. But it's probably not until you can get one-on-one with that person, and have what I would call the breaking bread session. Right. In fact, what we're breaking is barriers. Right.
So that's an important part of the leadership role, isn't it?
It's
one of the tips.
If you are an effective leader, that's something you're good at.
Getting in the one-on-ones.
One-on-ones. One to many, right? But certainly the one-on-ones. That's where I felt I did my best work. Because when you've got a whole audience, and you could be blinded by the fact that you don't know what audience is in front of you. Usually when you go in and you're going to present, so okay, well, what's the who we got in the room? So that you can get as close to the frequency or different frequencies as if you're really good throughout your presentation or public speaking. But one-on-one, you can obviously be very tailored, very custom, go deeper, faster into the individual and build a relationship, right? And so getting that rapport, super important.
So if you narrow it down to bring us to a bit of a closure today, if you roll that down into 3 top tips, what would they be? Succinctly, 3 top tips to take away to work with potential or current leaders.
Okay, so firstly, take away your own agenda as much as you can. Right, seeing them as a means to an end. Right. Now that by driven people, that is always going to be there. But if you're aware enough, you've actually raised above knowing that is there, and it's not to be judged. It's just who you are, and those things may even dissipate over time. But you're running the show. The aware part of you is running the show, and in your heart, because the heart knows and the mind thinks. Most of the time. Too much. It's 80,000 a day. 85% of them are like 75 the same each day. What a waste of energy.
Same old,
right? But top 3. So the first one would be that come from the heart first. And for some, that's going to take practice. And we're all evolved at different levels of doing that. But you know what the right thing is to do. And this is a human being.
Like that morality.
There's a human in front of you, a fellow human, and if you've done enough of the research and educating, we are actually all connected through one unified field, right? That'll be a topic for one of Adrian's in the future.
So first tip then is connect to the heart.
Connect to the heart. Second tip will be to ask questions. Take it. So now you're going to take an interest. So you're going to move that into an actual action, right? And it's like, okay, hi, how are you? What do you do? Learn about the individual. Ask them questions. People also, they'll be receiving that as, my God, it's taking an interest.
The inquiry.
Right? Yeah. And looking them in the eye and with the feeling of sincerity. You are looking at a human being, and if you need to fake it to make it to begin with, think of someone that is closest to you. Could be your son, your daughter, could be your partner, right? That you really do take an interest in, and put that feeling, this is a bit of the heart math learning. Think of that for a moment. Have the pause and think of that. And that will put you biochemically even in an instant and epigenetically into a different state of being, receiving that person and taking interest. And they will pick up that vibration. So asking that question from that heartfelt center.
So first one's connect to the heart. Second is inquire, ask, and connect. To that. And the third one?
Listen. Attentively listen to what they are saying. I happen to be just a naturally curious human. So it's it's not too hard for me. Although there have been times that I've had preoccupied thoughts or a concern going on where I'm not listening that well. Or I'm distracted.
What is that?
Hey,
I missed what you said.
What? So,
What's you been saying for the last 30 minutes?
That's a bloody word. It's all right, it's been recorded. So listening attentively and focusing and getting in the flow, right, of being that person. Now, if you need to get in the flow, it takes some longer. People can't see this happening. Deeper breaths into your stomach, not into the top part of the chest. It's going to get you into that state of being more into a, not so much a beta state, which is the fight or flight, I got to get all these things done, more into a learning mode, being in that alpha beta type state. Therefore, you're going to be in the flow of listening, right, and learning and hearing them. And that then start to spark off another question because you're curious and they'll see this. And when people start to see you taking interest, that's when it all starts to change and the relationship starts to develop. So the frequencies cohere.
So listening is a third.
Listening to third, cohering with their frequency.
So feel and tune into the heart. Ask.
Yep.
Is the second one, and then listen is the third one.
That's it.
So 3 key things. So I'm suggesting, write that down.
Yep.
Type that up, get it down, and then go away and practice it.
Practice it.
Those
3 things.
Every day.
Simple.
Yeah. Connect to the heart. Ask and listen.
Ask.
Done.
Attentively listen. Listen with your heart. Right? Not with your left brain. So
Tommy Gallant, what a cracking
mate.
What a cracking
managed to dance around that one, go straight in and
well done.
Bam.
I love the
bring me a hard one, Adrian.
You got easy ones. So look, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Great, Monday. It's always great to tune in. Mondays and Fridays, Corporate Alchemist Project page, Corporate Alchemist Project group on LinkedIn. Go and check them out, and also connect up with Tommy and Adrian anytime you want to. Tommy Gallant, the best place to connect with you is.
Let's connect at tommygallant.com or on Facebook, Tommy Gallant, 1L, or on LinkedIn, Tommy Gallant, and biotechexec.net, which is where we have our Platinum Executive Program.
Right. A lot easier for me.
Yourself?
AdrianHanks.com.
Oh, all right.
And Adrian Hanks LinkedIn and all of the social media. So,
right. Okay. There we go.
Nice easy. All right. Thanks for tuning in again, and you're going to have a glorious week.
Is that a pun?
That's right. Tune in.
Pace in and then lead.
That's right.
Step by step. Okay.
Take it easy.
Have a great one, guys. Bye.
That's it.